It was supposed to be a routine afternoon. Bill Gates had just stepped out of a long, grueling roundtable on global digital equity, his third meeting of the day. The next one was scheduled across town in just under an hour. Hungry and tired, he glanced out the tinted window of his town car and saw the golden arches. "Pull in," he told his driver. "I haven't had McDonald's in years." The car rolled up to the drive-thru lane. Bill rubbed his eyes and leaned back, ignoring the flurry of messages on his phone. For once, he wanted 5 minutes of stillness. A burger and fries to cut through the noise. Nothing more. "Welcome to McDonald's," said the voice over the speaker. "Sorry about the delay. Our system's been crashing all day." "1 second." Bill glanced at the digital menu screen, which flickered, then went black. A moment later, it buzzed back to life. "That was fast," he muttered. "Quick reboot and manual patch," the voice replied casually. Bill sat up straighter. That wasn't a typical response. He placed his order and drove forward to the payment window. A young man with tired eyes and a forced smile leaned out. He couldn't have been more than 30. His name tag read Darren. "That'll be $8.79, he said, holding out the card reader. As Bill handed him the card, something caught his eye. A small, beat-up notebook peeking out from Darren's apron pocket. Graph paper covered in dense sketches. Not doodles, schematics. Battery schematics. Bill's eyes narrowed. "Darren Reyes?" The young man froze. His smile faded. He looked down. "Your order will be ready at the next window, sir," Darren said mechanically. "No, wait. Darren Reyes, you worked at Cascade Labs on the lithium expansion tolerance models. Didn't you? You were part of our battery optimization think tank." "I need to keep the line moving," Darren said stiffly. "Please proceed." But Bill didn't drive off. Not right away. He pulled into a parking space and stared at the dashboard in silence. 6 months ago, Darren Reyes was one of the brightest engineering minds under the Cascade Energy Division, an initiative Gates funded to accelerate next-gen battery tech for developing countries. Bill remembered the name well. Darren had proposed a revolutionary hybrid cooling model. It had landed on his desk with a glowing review. And then, nothing. He pulled up his inbox and searched. There it was, a termination notice. "Performance breach," the subject read. No specifics, just a quiet exit. Bill frowned. He scrolled further. The internal memo had been approved by a manager named Victor Hamlin. Bill remembered Victor, too. Ambitious, smart, but fiercely territorial. He fired off a message to his chief of staff. "Need everything on Darren Reyes' departure from Cascade. Urgent." He looked back through the glass. Darren was still inside, working the fry station now. Exhausted, but precise. Even from a distance, Bill saw the same mechanical elegance he had in the lab. Calm under pressure, focused, capable. 40 minutes later, Bill was still in the parking lot. He had canceled his next meeting. When Darren stepped outside at the end of his shift, he looked startled to see Gates leaning against his car. "Mr. Gates?" "Walk with me," Bill said. "Please." Darren hesitated, then nodded. As they crossed the sidewalk, Bill asked, "What happened?" "You mean how I went from building power grids for rural India to working drive-thru?" Darren smirked bitterly. "I'm sure the file has all the answers. I want to hear it from you." Darren checked his watch. "I have to catch the 5:15. My neighbor watches. My daughter until 6. "I'll drive you," Bill offered. "You can talk. Or not, up to you." Darren looked at the bus stop down the street, then back at the man beside him. "Why do you care?" he asked. Bill paused. "Because I recognize the sketches in your notebook. And because people don't just forget how to innovate in 6 months. I want to understand." Darren took a breath. 15 minutes. "That's all I can spare." Bill nodded. "Let's go." The car ride was quiet at first. Darren stared out the window, arms crossed, watching the neighborhoods blur past. Bill didn't push, he waited. "My daughter's name is Maya," Darren said finally. "She's 7. Diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia 6 months ago." Bill glanced at him, listening. "She was admitted for chemo the same week. I got pulled into a closed-door meeting with Victor Hamlin." Bill nodded. "I read the name. He signed off on your termination." Darren laughed once, cold and humorless. "Victor didn't like that I was outperforming him. The new cooling system, the design I submitted, it worked. But he pressured me to adjust the test numbers to make it look more stable than it actually was. I refused. Told him I'd rerun the simulations over the weekend. And you did? Bill asked. I did. I stayed up 3 nights straight. My ex-wife now, was furious. Said I cared more about batteries than Maya. She was wrong. But I didn't have time to explain. Darren reached into his backpack and handed Bill a folded dog-eared printout. This is my original report. I emailed it to Victor Sunday night. Bill unfolded the paper. Dense with data, but legible. Elegant in its logic. Monday morning I walk into work, Darren continued, and HR pulls me in. Says I falsified data, that I'd confessed to Victor. They had a version of the report, my report with altered numbers. Numbers I never wrote. No email check? No internal investigation? Bill asked sharply. They said my emotional state made me unreliable and Victor's version of the report was already logged into the system by then. Bill clenched his jaw. And after that, I was out. Just like that. No severance, no insurance, no backup. I had 3 weeks before Maya's next round of chemo and 0 income. He looked down at his hands, so I went to McDonald's. It was the only place that offered flexible hours. The manager was kind, gave me the closing shift so I could take Maya to the hospital during the day. Bill was silent. When they arrived at Darren's building, a faded blue apartment complex, with cracked sidewalks, Darren turned to him. I don't want pity, he said flatly. You won't get it, Bill replied. I just want to see how you kept going. They climbed the stairs. A woman with graying hair opened the apartment door. You're late, she said gently. Maya's asking. I know. I'm sorry. This is a former colleague, Darren said. He handed her a folded bill. Thanks for watching her, Mrs. Guzman. Inside, the apartment was small but tidy. Coloring pages covered the dining table. Crayon drawings lined the fridge. A basket of pill bottles sat on the kitchen counter. From the other room came a small voice. Daddy? I'm here, sweetheart, Darren called. And I brought dinner. A girl with a thin face and rocket ship pajamas stepped into the room. Her scarf was wrapped tightly over her head. She blinked at Bill Gates, then broke into a shy smile. That's the computer man, she whispered to Darren. From your folder. Bill knelt beside her. Hi, Maya, he said softly. I brought chicken nuggets. Dinosaur ones? She asked hopefully. The best kind. During dinner, Maya talked about her favorite. Hospital nurse and her drawing of a flying car that didn't need gas. Bill watched as Darren's face softened with every word. He was a different man around her. Tired, but full of warmth. Afterward, while Maya rested on the couch, Darren pulled out the notebook. The same one from his apron pocket. I never stopped designing, he said, flipping it open. Bill leaned forward. Inside were dozens of technical sketches. Not just modifications, but full-blown system overhauls. Innovations in modular battery scaling. Concepts Bill had never seen. You did all this while working the fryer? He asked. I had to keep my mind sharp, Darren replied. And sometimes, ideas don't stop just because life gets hard. Bill closed the notebook slowly. These are good, Darren. Very good. Darren looked away. Doesn't matter. That door's shut. Bill stood. Maybe not. The next morning, Bill Gates sat alone in his private office at Cascade Foundation headquarters. Darren's original report lay open on his desk, next to the manipulated version still archived in the internal system. The differences were subtle but deliberate. Someone had altered Darren's data, just enough to discredit him without raising immediate suspicion. Bill's assistant Caitlin knocked gently and entered. You asked for everything on Victor Hamlin and Darren Reyes. She placed 2 folders in front of him. Bill opened the thicker one, Victor's file. Performance reviews praised his technical skills, but noted repeated issues with team dynamics. Does not share credit easily. Resists collaboration. The usual warning signs. But the real gold was in the email chain. Bill scrolled through Victor's messages, each more revealing than the last. In the days leading up to Darren's termination, Victor had sent increasingly critical notes to HR about Darren's emotional instability. Then the one email that sealed it. Darren submitted altered data Sunday night. Given his personal circumstances, I recommend immediate termination to avoid a drawn-out review. The timestamp on that email? 4 hours after Darren had sent his legitimate report. Bill leaned back, jaw tight. Victor hadn't made a mistake. He'd made a move. He picked up the phone. Caitlin, get me the head of Cascade Labs today. 30 minutes later, Bill sat across from Teresa Young, the new director of battery innovation. She was sharp, respected, and known for her honesty. Ever heard of this design? Bill asked, sliding Darren's cooling schematic across the desk. Teresa's eyes widened. We've been stuck on this exact cooling issue for months. Where did you get this? From the man who designed it, Darren Reyes, fired 6 months ago. Teresa froze. He's the one Victor said falsified data. He didn't, Bill said. Victor did. Teresa sat back, stunned. If that's true, we lost a brilliant mind. And 6 months of progress. I'm bringing him back, Bill said. But I need to know, if he rejoins the team, would you support him? Teresa nodded without hesitation. Absolutely. Innovation doesn't care about office politics. Bill smiled. Good, because the notebook he showed me is filled with ideas. Not just for cooling. System-wide redesigns. I want him reporting directly to me, Teresa added. We'll protect him. Later that afternoon, Bill called Darren. I'd like you to come to the foundation office, he said. There's something I want to show you. Darren hesitated. Is this about the notebook? It's about everything. When Darren arrived, he was visibly nervous, wearing his best clothes, though they were a bit too small. The receptionist guided him to the top floor. Bill stood waiting with a folder in his hand. This is your reinstatement offer, he said. Special projects lead, full autonomy to pursue your designs. Full benefits for you and Maya, effective immediately. Darren didn't reach for the folder. I don't understand, he said. Why would you do this? Because you were wronged, Bill replied. And because these ideas, he tapped the notebook, can change the future of energy. That deserves a second chance. Darren stared at the contract. What if I can't deliver? He said quietly. Maya still needs me. Some nights I barely sleep. Then we work around that, Bill said. We'll build a schedule that works for you. Work from home. Work from the hospital. Just work. Darren picked up the pen with trembling fingers and signed. I don't know what to say, he whispered. Then say nothing, Bill said. Just show the world what you're capable of. Darren's first day back at Cascade felt surreal. He walked past familiar whiteboards and glass-walled meeting rooms, wearing a new badge with his name freshly printed. The security guard at the front desk had smiled and welcomed him back. But not everyone did. In the engineering bullpen, some old colleagues gave polite nods. Others avoided his gaze entirely. Darren felt the weight of the rumors, of the way he'd been dismissed, and how Bill Gates himself had brought him back. He found a quiet desk waiting for him near the prototype lab. Next to it, a top-spec workstation, dual monitors, and a powerful simulation setup. Pinned to the monitor was a sticky note in Bill's handwriting. Let your work speak louder than your past. BG. Darren got to work immediately. His notebook was already full of ideas, but this time, he had the tools to bring them to life. Simulations, 3D models, early-stage circuitry blueprints, all flowed from his mind into the system. Still, the silence from some colleagues lingered like a fog. At the end of the week, he found a folded note taped to his locker. Fraud, you don't belong here. He stood frozen for a second, then calmly folded the paper and threw it away. That night, Maya's treatment ran late. She was tired but cheerful as Darren read her bedtime story. Did you fix the car batteries today, Daddy? She asked. Working on it, he smiled. Still a few bugs to figure out. You'll do it, she said sleepily. You fixed my Toy Bear's voice box, remember? That night, Darren stayed up sketching until 2 a.m. By the second week, progress came in bursts. Aisha, a senior systems engineer who had once worked alongside Darren, stopped by his desk. Teresa says your cooling model simulation hit 24%. Thermal efficiency improvement, she said. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous good or ridiculous fake? Darren asked quietly. Ridiculous good, she said. You want help running stress tests? He nodded, relief washing over him. They worked side by side all week. Slowly, other engineers started joining their late-night discussions. Respect was returning, earned in silence through results. Then came the invitation. Darren would present his prototype to the full battery division, and a few board members the following Monday. He was nervous but ready. The day of the presentation, he wore a suit jacket that no longer fit perfectly, but had been carefully ironed. The room was full, engineers, executives, and even a few people he didn't recognize. He began quietly. 6 months ago, I was working a deep fryer. Today, I'm here because someone gave me a second chance. But what really brought me back is a drawing my daughter made in the hospital. He clicked to the first slide, Maya's block pattern drawing, then overlaid it with the heat channel layout of his new battery. The audience leaned in. As he explained the configuration, the room grew still. Then came questions, hard ones. Darren answered each with clarity and confidence. When the results from the test rig appeared, a 27% cooling efficiency boost, with 16% reduction in rare materials used, even the skeptics started to murmur in approval. After the meeting, Teresa caught up with him in the hallway. "You've just solved a problem we've been stuck on for almost a year," she said. "I hope you're ready for what's coming next." "What's that?" he asked. "Visibility. And probably envy." That evening, Darren and Maya sat at their tiny kitchen table, coloring together. "When you showed them my block pattern," Maya said, "did they laugh?" "No," Darren smiled. "They clapped. Even the ones who didn't like you? Even them?" Maya beamed. For the first time since his fall from Cascade, Darren felt something he hadn't dared to feel in months: belonging. Monday morning arrived with more than just routine. Cascade Foundation's press office was buzzing, emails flying, phones ringing. Overnight, a major tech outlet had published a feature article titled, "From Fryer to Future, the Quiet Genius Behind Cascade's Battery Breakthrough." It told Darren's full story, his unjust termination, his months working at McDonald's to keep his daughter alive, and his recent breakthrough at Cascade Labs. The article ended with a powerful quote from Bill Gates. "We don't just lose innovation when we discard people too quickly, we lose integrity." Darren's return proves that brilliance doesn't vanish when life gets hard. Sometimes that's when it sharpens. The article spread like wildfire. Within hours, Darren's inbox was full. Old friends, strangers, former classmates, engineers across the world writing messages of support. At Cascade HQ, some welcomed the spotlight. Others were clearly unsettled. That afternoon, Bill invited Darren to his office. He stood by the window, holding a hard copy of the article. "Your story is reaching people, Darren," he said. "It's making waves in ways we can't fully predict yet." "I didn't want all this attention," Darren admitted. "I just wanted a chance to work again, quietly." "Which is exactly why it matters," Bill said. "Most innovation doesn't happen on stages. It happens in notebooks, in silence, in hospital rooms. Your story reminds people of that." Bill motioned toward a file on his desk. "I want you to lead something bigger now. Not just one project, a new initiative." Darren raised an eyebrow. "We're calling it Project Reboot," Bill explained. "It'll find engineers, coders, and scientists who've been sidelined by illness, layoffs, discrimination. We'll give them what you were never given, a runway." Darren was speechless. "And I want to name the model after the person who sparked all this," Bill said with a smile. "The Maya model." Darren's voice caught. "She'll be so proud." 3 months later, Cascade held a small ceremony to open its new flexible innovation wing. The centerpiece wall bore a plaque that read, "The Maya model, inspired by resilience, powered by imagination." Next to it hung a framed photo. Darren and Maya sitting together in a hospital bed, her holding a toy battery prototype made from building blocks. Maya, now with hair slowly returning and strength growing by the day, stood beside her father on stage, wearing a white Cascade lab coat with her name stitched on the pocket. "Would you like to say something?" Darren whispered. Maya nodded and stepped forward to the microphone, barely reaching it. "My daddy builds things," she said with childlike seriousness. "Even when it's hard. And I help, so maybe one day I'll build things too." The crowd laughed gently and applauded. Bill wiped his glasses. That evening, Darren and Maya walked through the lab together, now filled with engineers from every walk of life. Some returning mothers, some military veterans, others like Darren once written off. Everywhere they went, people smiled. Not because Darren had built a battery, but because he had become a symbol of what could be restored. In a corner office, Darren opened his notebook again. Only now, it sat on a clean desk beside advanced equipment, flanked by a small drawing Maya had made. Her dad, holding a bolt of lightning. He smiled and whispered to himself, "You can do this." And from the quiet of a drive-thru window months ago, to the hum of innovation reshaping an industry today, a second chance had done more than rebuild one man's life. It had become a blueprint for how we treat the broken, the misjudged, and the overlooked. Not as risks, but as resources.